Hello, my name is Kyle Dillon, and this is my summative blog reflection for Walsh University's 622 Organizational Behavior and Management. This will serve as a reflection of my growth as a manager through the duration of the module. So, a little bit about me. I'm 27 years old, and I'm from Northeast Ohio, and I'm currently employed as a chemist in an analytical laboratory. For about a year, I served as a manager for the organic prep department in the building, which means that I was in charge of every sample that came through and required organic analysis. So from PCBs to herbicides, my job was to make sure they got processed quickly and correctly. I had 7 subordinates and 1 direct supervisor who was the operations manager, who in turn had 1 direct supervisor, the laboratory director. I had since stepped away from management when an analytical position opened up, and now I turn those samples into data for client review. So moving on to the blogs. For week 1, the prompt was to describe how I like to be managed and how that compares to how I manage. I like to lead with the golden rule in mind. Everything I expect of my subordinates, I expect of myself. If I need them to come in over the weekend, I'll be there with snacks. I try to treat everybody fairly, honestly, and kindly, and I found that the best way to get the result is to ask something that was measurable, timely, realistic, and achievable. Basically, I wouldn't send somebody on a wild goose chase just because I wanted to get rid of them or give them something to do. I would also try to empathize with each subordinate and try to find a way to present my needs and the things that I needed of them in a way that fit them, while maintaining a consistent expectation for everybody. This matches my expectations of how I want to be led. I want my supervisor to be fair, honest, and direct with me so I can provide consistent quality and know that I'm doing that. So moving on, week 2, the prompt was to take the Hexaco personality inventory and reflect upon the results. So this test defined me like to a T, and I was pleasantly unsurprised with the results. Actually, after having taught on the topic of introversion, the results make even more sense to me now. So the Hexaco defined me as open-minded, introverted, agreeable, and anxious. I'd always describe myself as more introverted than extroverted, but after taking the Myers-Briggs test and the Hexaco, I can see that I clearly fall into that category. Before starting this course, I thought it was kind of a bad thing to be introverted. I realized that I'm more shy than not, and I stay away from social gatherings, and I seek analytical work. Now, having researched introversion more deeply, I understand this is not a flaw, but rather a different perspective on leadership. Introverts have a lot of insight and knowledge to offer in a leadership setting. Whoever's watching this, be sure to check out my TED Ed. Anyway, for week 3, I was prompted to reflect on my experiences with punishment versus reward. I always perform better when positive performance yields a positive result. If there's a clear goal, whether it's monetary or an opportunity for advancement, I tend to work toward it if I know how I'll be rewarded. So if I'm being punished, the opposite happens. I tend to focus more on the bad interaction and not the reason for the improvement. When I'm managing, I try to keep it light and positive. This meant that I was rewarding smaller positive interactions instead of correcting and punishing the little bad ones. I try to appear accepting and fun. I noticed that if I kept it light and through the act of levity, the job doesn't seem as monotonous as it really is. A joke here, a good job there, an attaboy there really went a long way. Next, for week 4, verbal and nonverbal communications. When I was getting my undergrad, I was going for a nursing degree. Turns out the human body is disgusting and wasn't for me. Anyway, we were told that nonverbal communication can convey as much or more as what you actually say. For example, you could walk into a patient's room and say, "Do you need anything?" But if your arms are crossed, your foot's tapping, you keep looking at the clock, then the person is just going to see you as an agitated person who doesn't really care if you actually need anything. Just doing their job, going through the motions. Since covering this topic in class, I've noticed my nonverbals more. I'm becoming more and more aware of when I display them, and that it happens more often when I'm annoyed or impatient when talking with somebody. And I'm trying to work on showing more of what I actually mean than what I'm displaying. So anyway, consistent eye contact, calm demeanor, and full attention are what people need to do in interactions. Moving on, week 5, we covered the topic of intercultural communications. This is very important in a business setting and becomes more and more important as businesses transition to the global stage. My personal experience with this topic has been fairly limited, but I do have a story. So I had a coworker who I would talk to every day who had a very, very different background than my own. Let's call her Angie. So I was raised in Northeast Ohio in the Methodist Church by divorced parents who lived a block and a half apart. I did very well with it. It was an overall positive experience, but that's not the story for most kids. Angie was raised in urban India in the Hindi faith, and her parents are the product of an arranged marriage, which was also arranged for her. She was in an arranged marriage. She met her husband when she was 14 years old, and they moved to the US about 10 years ago. They now have 2 sons who attend private school. A few months ago, she welcomed all of her former coworkers into her house and provided us with traditional Indian dishes. Very colorful, very spicy, those kind of things. She's one of my very good friends that I met at work, and her background is very, very different from mine. Anyway, I welcome the chance to meet more people like her. So next in week 6, we covered group dynamics and how to achieve results in group settings. As I identify as an introvert, I prefer to work alone. I feel like I do my best work alone when I can focus on making my own ideas happen. Groups, for me, have more or less been an excuse for compromise, especially when we're all starting from the same point. At work, my roles comprise of both leadership and subordinate positions, and as a subordinate, I tend to follow my position well. I try my best to understand my assigned role and perform it up to or above my supervisor's standards. As a leader, I set the standards. I'm in control. During my time in leadership, the organic prep department was a well-oiled machine and was rewarded for achieving the highest productivity in years. Now, that's not just complimenting myself. Every single group member had the skills and the desire needed to achieve this success. All I provided was the foresight and the ability to manage those skills to the group's overall success. My group was very talented, and I was truly fortunate to have them. I guess in general, I tend to do well when the duties are clear and manageable or are decided upon by me. So lastly, in this past week, week 7, Group 2 put the final touches on our teaching topic and submitted something truly great. Our vision was clear, our resources were abundant, and the tools, for the most part, worked well. Anyway, I was prompted to give my preference toward individual tasks or group work. I responded individually, but as I reflect upon that response now, I'm less biased by the situation. I think I was getting overwhelmed by the project. I assigned myself the most time-consuming part because I had a clear vision of what I wanted. The group did well, don't get me wrong, but I think I would have preferred if some parts were divvied out differently. Anyway, hindsight's 2020. At work, I prefer a team setting. We rely on each other to get data to the client, from sample receipt to project report. I'm lucky in my position that I have achieved one of the more prestigious positions in my department, but to get there, I had to experience every step along the way. Because of this experience, I can step in and offer help to anyone in the department and do so competently in a manner that offers the most benefit to the group. So I feel useful and I feel like I make a difference to the team. In conclusion, I feel like I've learned a lot about myself in the past 2 months. I learned that I enjoy teamwork, I'm good at communication, I'm not afraid to take on the big tasks, but most importantly, I actually enjoy leadership. Coming back to Walsh was a great decision for me, and I feel like my future is bright. Thank you.